dig open. These are the hadiths which I'm just quickly going through. A person who digs a well and then through that. A tree that a person plants, and those whosoever benefit from this tree, they will benefit as well. A community that one establishes, as long as the community is there, they are guided there from that community, from that place, or from that country. For example, with reference to the Islamic Revolution, for example, the person who established it, they will be getting the sawab for it. Or, for example, the waqf, which is a person designates, or the heritage that one leaves behind, and they say that this is for madrasa or masjid, things like that, that they will benefit from it. So these are the things that individual, that soul is in there, will continuously get. To the extent we have the amal of namaz mayyat, namaz salatul layl, khabr namaz. I'm sorry, salat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Namaz wahshat qabr, namaz wahshat that we have. That soul gets that, receives that. And there's a story about Ayatollah Isfahani, who was the Imam of the masjid, and his habit was to recite, mustahab for any mu'min who have died. He recited it, and the brother comes to the brother of the deceased. He comes to the Imam Jamaat, who was Ayatollah Isfahani, and he thanked him that last night you helped my brother. He said, why? What happened? He has died and you prayed namaz wahshat for him, and this came in a form of a light and helped him in the grave. The verses says that, the riwayat says that when that soul is being dragged to that grave, it goes with the body. And as soon as the body is laid and the soul goes back, and when it opens the eye, it is dark chamber for that person. And he's in great wahshat. He's in great trouble at that hour. And still this hasn't finished. Then all of a sudden, he starts hearing sounds of munkir or nakir about to be approached. And when he sees him, that's more dreadful for him. And when they ask him a question, when he hears the voice, that's more painful for him. And this is something that, he looks at his loved ones who are leaving him after putting in them grave. He will call them, but still there is no escape from it. Somehow he has to come resolve with it. All this wahshat and all that. And all this is for that refining. He has to go through. It's inevitable. He has to be prepared. He has to do things that will come as in light to protect him. And that is why we say that when the angels will ask you, if you have that love which we mentioned of Amirul Mu'mineen, he will be there to help and assist you. Man Rabbuk, what is this all talqeen? The dead body is there and you are telling talqeen, Man Rabbuk, who is your Lord, what is your book, what is your qibla, what is your kitab? You are reminding him that you have to answer these things when they come and ask you. Because the soul is right there. It's watching each and every move that is happening. And Allama Tehrani in Ma'ad Shanasi, there's a book about 11 volumes. I had mentioned this, when I was here about 9 years ago. Mentions that I saw, there's a doctor. He was a doctor, student of Allama Tehrani. He wasn't a ruhani, a priest or a scholar. But he was his student in akhlaq. Allama Tehrani used to give lessons of akhlaq in his house every Wednesday or a Thursday night. Apparently he would attend these lectures and he would practice. He would give dastur amal. You do this mustahab, that mustahab to this doctor. And this doctor says, comes to his lesson, to his class running. And he was like, breathing heavy. And he says, what just happened and what just I saw? He said, I was coming to the lesson and I saw a funeral being done. And there was a black dog that was sitting on top of this dead body. and it was Najaf. And they took this dead body to do the tawaf of haram. That's usually they do, before they bury. And as soon as it reached the door of the haram of Amir al-Mu'minin, this dead dog jumped down and he sat there. Then they tawaf, they do it, they brought back, and the dead dog, once again, that black one sat on top of it. And they took it, and then I saw this. Then Allama Tehrani interprets and mentions this, that his soul is that. But as it cannot enter the haram of Amir al-Mu'minin, it got down. And then it went back again. So the soul is with it, it's there. So obviously, if a person's soul is like a dog, how can he say, my Lord is Allah, with that sort of, thing that he has developed? He has lost the ability to speak like a human being because of what he has spoken. Doing backbiting is like eating dead flesh. Who eats dead flesh? When a person eats dead flesh, when a person feeds himself with dead flesh, can he speak like a human being? I mean, this is not hadith that eating backbiting is like eating dead flesh. This is the verse of the Quran in Surah Hujurat. So when a person is carrying that out, obviously he will lose that ability. Ayatollah Hasan Zadeh Amali reports, this is from Qom, that he was sitting with his students, a person forced himself and he sat with him. And then he left. Agha Hasan Zadeh said, this man was like a wolf. In his alam-e-misal, in that barzakhi world, the things that he has developed for himself. He was a tajir, he was some sort of business person. So therefore, the person who goes inside that grave and wants to see this Munkar and Nakir or Mubashar and Nazir, he wants to run away from them because of what he has made of himself. But if he has made himself, if he has prepared for this journey, and he has already refined himself, he will be the one perhaps, questioning or mentioning the angels, who is your Lord? He will ask, who is your Lord? He will be that powerful. And there's a joke here for Mir Damad, a great philosopher, and also he was the father-in-law of Mullah Sadra, the 16th century philosopher. I mean, Mir Damad is like the philosopher, it's like. So they said about Mir Damad, as he was a philosophy, ilahiyat and tawheed and all that, right? And he wrote books and books and books about it. So the angels came and they asked him that, who is your Lord? And here Mir Damad started his philosophy. The angels got confused and they went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this philosopher is speaking, these terms. He said, don't worry, leave him. Many of the things what he has said about me, I don't understand myself. Sallallahu Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So therefore, it's that preparation. If I am prepared, it's this hadith of the fourth Imam, this is which, we will probably, if Allah gives tawfiq, we can look into when we are discussing the Day of Judgment. When they will be raised, Munadi will give nida, will call and say that, take them to Jannah bighayri hisab. They don't really have to do hisab for them. Hisab is also a refining process, just like death. These are the stages. I have to go through hisab. My all amal should be balanced. And the more, obviously, this hisab is doing what? This hisab is delaying me for that meeting to take place. When this hisab is delaying me for that meeting to take place, that means a refining thing. So there are individuals, the fourth Imam says that, the Munadi will give nida that, take them to Jannah bighayri hisab. They don't really have to wait for hisab, for that refining to take place. They are already pure and purified. And then they ask him, the angels will ask him, who are you? They will say that we are the one who loved each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is brotherhood. That is the true brotherhood that exists between mu'mineen and mu'minat. To that extent it should be. For the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore the connection of this world with the barzakh, with the purgatory world is inevitable. It's there. and they are watching us, and some of us can watch them, and they are watching us. If they have that strength and ability to watch us, they can come here. If they have that power and strength to come here and intervene in this world as well. Those shuhada who died, many of them have reported that they came and fought against the enemies recently. So therefore, that assistance and help is there. If one is on that path of fulfillment, of fulfilling the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that is Karbala. We see that is the zenith of obedience, of ubudiyat to the Ma'bud, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if they were like that, do you think that they will leave us alone when we are commemorating, when we are remembering them? Of course they will come and to our aid and help us. Every night we talk about a shaheed, and that particular shaheed is an individual, has its own personality, has its own character, and he becomes or she becomes a source of help for us in this world and the hereafter. Saadat Parwar, whose book I have here, who was a student of Allama Tabatabai, he says that he used to do the Khatm of Quran. Khatm of Quran for who? For Prophet Nuh, for Prophet Isa, for Prophet. He would remember all of them and send all good things to them. We are just so preoccupied with things. It's just that one Fatiha that we do. People who are aware of these things, they carry out amal for them, and they come and thank that you have done this book or you have done this seminar for my sake. Then they come and thank and they acknowledge what they have received over there. So you think when we are discussing about the personalities of Karbala that they will not come and aid and help us? How can that not? How can they not? Especially the little ones of Hazrat Zainab Salamullah alayha, Aun and Muhammad. And Hazrat Abdullah, he couldn't, because of his health, go with Imam Hussain alayhi salam, as some of the scholars have reported. One, or some of them have reported no. For the fulfillment and for the spread of message of Karbala, it was required that some people remain. Like for example, Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, who remained in Karbala and who saved the wasiyat of Imam Hussain, that I'm leaving, I'm doing qiyam not for play, but for Amar bil Maruf and all that. There's a long wasiyat. Inshallah, if Allah gives us tawfiq, maybe this Friday in Jummah namaz we'll look at the wasiyat of Imam Hussain which he gave. So some people were left behind in order that the mission, in order the message of Imam Hussain remains and it's spread to others. There are two reports. One is that Hazrat Abdullah gave Aun and Muhammad right when Hazrat Zainab went with Imam Hussain alayhi salam in Medina. But there's another report that when Imam Hussain alayhi salam went in Makkah from Medina and he was stationed there, he wrote a letter to Imam Hussain. The letter is in history saying that the mayor, the mayor of Makkah, basically the person who was in charge of Makkah, the governor of Makkah is my close friend, and if you need any help or assistance, any protection, please feel free, so to speak, to let me know. Then Imam Hussain replied that my protector is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here it says that Hazrat Abdullah came to Makkah and visited Imam Hussain alayhi salam and brought his sons and gave Aun and Muhammad himself to Imam Hussain alayhi salam, that they accompany you when you go to Kufa eventually, where Imam Hussain, and when the time comes, you sacrifice them before you. So here Aun and Muhammad, who was less than 13 years old of age, they say when Hazrat Zainab prepared Aun and Muhammad, both of them, the apple of the eyes of Hazrat Zainab, put the collyrium in their eyes, perfumed them, and tied the sword And when they went to the tent of Imam Hussain alayhi salam, the sword was dragging on the ground. That the height of there was so little that it touches the ground. And when the uncle saw these two little ones, he embraced them and he kissed them. And he says, where are you intending to? Then they said, oh uncle, give us permission that we go and fight. And one thing that we mentioned, that Bani Hashim, in terms of their chivalry, in terms of their eloquency, in terms of their strength and intellectuality, they were marvelous people. They were amazing people. They were genius. Even the little ones were genius. They were amazing. For example, that incident of when Amirul Mu'mineen was teaching Hazrat Abbas that say one, Wahid, Ahad. Hazrat Abbas replied that the mouth which says Ahad doesn't look that it says Ithnain. Doesn't look good that it says two. Pointing out to the Wahdaniyat. Still a child who is learning how to count, but look at his understanding, where he replies that a mouth which pronounces one, indicating to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it doesn't look good that it pronounces two. And here Amirul Mu'mineen embraced and kissed Abul Fazl Abbas. So the Bani Hashim, they were very intellectual, they were eloquent, they were strong. It was very difficult, obviously, when we are talking about the grandchildren of Ja'far-e-Tayyar here, Hazrat Abdullah, the grandchildren of Ja'far-e-Tayyar. Who Ja'far-e-Tayyar? When he was victorious, Hazrat Ja'far-e-Tayyar, and he came back to the Prophet, and he said that we were victorious in a ghazwa, in a battle, then the Prophet said, ask whatever you want, Ja'far, I will give you. Then in return, Ja'far-e-Tayyar asked Salat-e-Ja'far-e-Tayyar. The Salat-e-Ja'far-e-Tayyar that we have was a gift from the Prophet to him. He could have asked mansion or position, but what did he ask? He asked the Salat-e-Ja'far-e-Tayyar. And look at the effect of Salat-e-Ja'far-e-Tayyar. Even till today, is one of the ways of mujarrab ways, one of the greatest way of acceptance of our du'as, if someone performs it. Even till today it has that power. So, On and Muhammad were the grandchildren of Ja'far-e-Tayyar. It says that when they came to Imam Hussain embraced them, kissed them, and asked them, Min Ain, where do you want to go? Then they say, we want to go to the battlefield and sacrifice. And here Imam says that, no, it is not you that you go. You are still a child. Perhaps your father may not agree with this act of me sending you. I am the caretaker of you. I cannot afford that you be slain. And here Hazrat Zainab was standing there. And she says, Abdullah gave me that they go to the battle and that they protect you, Abu Abdullah. And when they went into the battlefield, here Umar Saad shouts and he says that what love Zainab must have had, that she's sending these two lovely ones to be sacrificed for Abu Abdullah, for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And the love she had for Imam Hussain alayhi salam. And then when they came to fight, and it was the culture of the Arabs that they used to fight one-on-one, but they were not defeated. Every big soldier that was coming to fight, a child who is less than 13 years old, he was defeated. They came in ranks of 20s and 30s, but they couldn't. And here Umar Saad shouts and he says, woe unto you, what had happened to you? That you cannot defeat these two little ones, these two little children that you cannot defeat? Then they replied that we need the backup, we need support. These are the grandchildren of Ja'far-e-Tayyar. It's not a joke. And then they had some reports says that enemy hid behind the palms that was there and attacked them. And some reports they gathered and they had an ambush. And a blow was struck upon the head of On. And when On falls down from the mount, Muhammad gets down from the mount to aid and assist and help his little brother. And he places the head of his little brother in his lap and starts cleaning the blood that has come onto his forehead because of the injury that has taken place. And while he was attacked once again by the enemies. And here both of them give their salutations and salams to their master, to their uncle. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Hearing this call, Imam Hussein furiously go towards them to protect them, but they were no longer there. And here Aba Abdullah picks them up and brings them near the Qiyam, where the ladies, where the women and children were there. They came out and started lamenting on and Muhammad. As they were lamenting on and Muhammad, but Zainab, the mother of On and Muhammad, wasn't seen there. Where is she? And at the same time, it's been reported that when the heads were brought, because they were beheaded and their heads were taken to Syria, and the heads were handed back to the mothers and to the sisters, the heads, they were all brought into a tray, and one mother was going forward and taking the head of their loved ones. It's been reported that there were two heads. That was one. And the ladies were saying that whether are these heads of orphans? Nobody is claiming these heads, but Zainab was seen with the head of Abdullah Hussein. And here Zainab doesn't come and attends to the body of On and Muhammad, thinking that if she cries, maybe this will become a reason or weaken Imam Hussein alayhi salam for his purpose, for the mission that Imam Hussein alayhi salam had. But you know, when Zainab cried for On and Muhammad, when Zainab went back from Sham, when she goes to the grave of the Prophet, she recites the whole majlis of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. She mentions about every shaheed, but still she doesn't mention On and Muhammad. But when she goes back to her house, she opens the door, she throws herself in the yard. When she looks at the chambers of On and Muhammad, the rooms of On and Muhammad, when she looks at the well, she says, this is where they used to fetch water. This is the yard they used to play. She does the matam of On and Muhammad. فلا لعنة الله على قوم الظالمين سيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. ماتم يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين